Okay, we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for viewing this Build Employee Onboarding Workflows in Minutes. I'm your host, Rich Dill, along with my cohorts, Zach and Jay. My name is Rich Dill. I'm an enterprise solutions architect. I've been with Snaplogic for about 9 years now, had a variety of roles and responsibilities. These days, I'm working with the channels team and our good friends and partners, Zach and Jay, on building world-class solutions for businesses with partners like Zach. So, Zach?
Hey, thanks, Rich. So I'm Zach Ledford. I'm a co-founder and a principal at HR technology consulting company, Elgin LLC. And I'm coming to you with a year of experience running Elgin, providing consulting services, digital transformations, specifically using iPaaS tech, Snaplogic, for organizations. And that's with after having some experiences for 4.5, 5 years as the manager of HR data and automation at SpaceX. So Jay?
Thanks, Zach. My name is Jay Russell. I've been with Elgin for just about a year now. I'm in charge of sales and relationship management here. So if we work together, there's a good chance you'll be talking with me. But I come to you with over a decade's experience of software experience, most recently helping folks maximize the cloud to improve their communication. And now I'm hoping to use iPaaS to transform the way that many organizations do HR.
Thanks, Jay. So for those of you that don't know, Snaplogic is a world-class five-time Gartner Quadrant leader in the iPaaS platform. We've been around since 2006. Right now, this number is a little off. We're actually up exceeding 1 trillion objects or documents a month in our platform around the world. We've got about 250 employees scattered throughout the globe. And we work with the Fortune 1000 and the Fortune 20,000, as you can see for some of the logos there. We're not always the first integration platform as a service or integration technology that a business purchases, but with a greater than 95% renewal rate, we're usually the last. Okay. So Snaplogic as an integration platform doesn't matter whether you're manufacturing life-saving pharmaceuticals, whether you're saving data for customers, running the worldwide net, Amazon, to doing finances or anything in between. So we are in use around the world, helping businesses automate practice, deliver data, work intelligently. Over to you, Zach.
And here at Elgin, we are hyper-focused on the HR space. And Zach actually started out as a customer of Snaplogic at SpaceX, saw the wonderful things that they could do to transform his HR space and wanted to bring it to other enterprises. We are a small tribe of folks that come from many different backgrounds, several veterans, data scientists, I'm a salesman. However, our shared focus and passion for improving and transforming the way organizations do HR is what separates us from the rest of the folks out there. Rich? These are a few of the logos that we work with. We're going to show you a few of these in the demo here today. But while you're taking a look at the presentation, I want you to think a little bit outside of exactly what we're showing you. This technology can work across the entire organization, not just in the tools that you have now, not just in HR. But use your imagination a bit. Think about how some of the processes that we're going to show you today can extrapolate across the entire organization. I want to paint a little bit of a picture of what HCM looks like today. Over the last 5 to 10 years, we've all been encouraged to move over to the cloud, and it's brought us some great progress. However, there's been some downsides and some headaches that came along with that. We all have the different tools, which means there's a lot of manual data entry. It's a compliance risk. Think of what an error will cost you in both time as well as potential fines. However, it's also a morale risk. You're using some very talented HR folks that is just data entry specialists. And when you enter all this data into all these separate tools that you have, that data is siloed in these tools, and cobbling together reports takes some time. It's all in different formats. It's not very digestible and very readable. And when you can get the analytics that you need, they're often conflicting or from different sources, and trying to paint a holistic picture is very difficult to do. And think about the single points of failure. I just brought up, you have that one guy that knows how to cobble together all the reports, but think about the one or two folks in your organization that know how to work ADP better than anyone else, or they know Workday Studio. If something happens to that person, it is a costly and timely endeavor to replace them. And frankly, the entire endeavor can be expensive and risky if we keep going down the same path. And I'm going to pass it off to Zach to show you how doing HCM with iPass can make things a heck of a lot easier for you.
Hey, thanks, Jay. So we're going to talk about specifically automating onboarding and at the same time talk about people analytics today. And the reason we're picking that, it's not accidental. This is deliberate to show you what the foundation of your HCM automation journey should entail, right? So we're looking at use cases like getting employees equipment and access that they need, doing system-to-system integrations between your HRIS. In this case, we'll show Workday, but as Jay intimated, that could be abstracted to any system that's out there, including anything that you had that was homegrown. Your learning management systems, your CRM, communication, team softwares like Slack or Microsoft Teams, things like Jira and ServiceNow. We'll show how we're going to unify workflows and also create a people data warehouse sort of foundation to level set. And then we'll show you how easy it is to use a Snaplogic designer to really take the concepts and the use cases that are in mind and put them into practice, put them into production, right? And how quick and fast that can actually be done, right? And so at the bottom, you see some of the annual ROI that you can expect as you're doing projects related to the full employee lifecycle, right? So we're talking about thousands of hours saved, hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of direct costs saved with labor, hundreds of thousands of dollars in risk that you're mitigating from a compliance perspective. So just across the board, something holistically that's going to be a major benefit. All right. So before we hop into the demo, just like real quick, broad strokes, we're going to show you how to enable system integration, how to enhance your entire ecosystem using repeatable automation so that we're not starting from scratch over and over and over again. We'll go ahead and leverage some repeatable patterns, and then explore out what happens as you start to unlock full employee lifecycle analytics by pushing data into a data warehouse and then leveraging it inside of a BI tool. So we'll go ahead and stop the PowerPoint here and hop over into Snaplogic. So what you're looking at here is the designer. This is where all the magic happens for the tool. So functionally, what you're seeing is over here on the left, a collection of snaps. That's what these little individual puzzle pieces are. And broad strokes, what we're doing is we're pulling in sort of these pre-made data connectors, data transformation elements, API sort of connections that are pre-baked. And we're assembling them here in order to do some really powerful things with automation and data transformation. So what we're going to do is start inside of our HRIS, in this case, Workday here. Let me go ahead and just re-authenticate real quick. And we're going to hire an employee. After we hire that employee, we're going to see that record cascade through Snaplogic, see that record move into ServiceNow. We'll see it go into a Slack notification, which is something that, many organizations like to do to kind of notify a team or a hiring manager or whatever else. And then I'll show you a push into Snowflake. So this is our digital database, cloud-based cloud warehousing solution. I'll show you a simple version of what that looks like. And then I'll show you what's like a sort of a subordinate workflow that's a lot more complex and that mimics what you would see inside of a production environment if you were actually going to implement something like this. So let's start off inside of Workday, and we'll go ahead and just do really quickly hiring an employee so that we can take a look at this real time. And I'll go ahead and put this underneath Logan, and we'll make a new pre-hire. So as I'm doing this, one of the things to keep in mind is that if you have your applicant tracking system also integrated in with your human resources information system, this is not something that you necessarily have to do manually, right? You would be putting some information will be coming and cascading over via integration into your HRIS. For the Workday context, that would be a pre-hire record moving into a hire. But because we're just sort of starting here, we've got to do this component kind of by hand, but it won't take that long. Just bear with me. And we'll go ahead and fill out all this information. The other thing to kind of keep in mind too is that we're leveraging the approval workflows and everything else inside of Workday itself. So the idea is do what you need to do inside of the systems that you have already, including any type of approvals or other custom sort of workflow components that are just situated inside of that one technology piece. So in this case, Workday, and then push things out of the system whenever you actually need to. All right, and so for here, we're going to do this as a regular employee. We're going to make them full time. We're going to say they're working in the Dallas office. Great. And that should be it. What am I missing? Oh, whoops. And this is a new hire for a new position with an effective date of yesterday. All right, that should be it. So because I'm in a specific account, there is no approval necessary for that hire. It just comes in and we're done. So I'll go ahead and wrap that up. But here's the employee record that we're looking for. So Tim Vandal. So we'll just pull that record up real quick. And we can see the 21793. That's the employee number for Tim. And that's also the unique identifier that we're going to see cascade through the entirety of the Snaplogic workflow. So we'll hop back into the designer. I'm going to go ahead and fire off this run. And what's happening is you're sort of watching. We went from gray. This is going to slowly turn into green. And then you'll start to see these elements kind of pop up in between. What we're seeing is a real-time feedback providing both status of what's going on for the entire flow. So green is good. And then also providing us with some preview elements as we're working through each portion of the workflow. So what do I mean by that? So for instance, part of what we're doing is getting the information in from Workday. Specifically for Tim Vandal, this record that we just created. So if we hop into here, this is where we're getting the information from Workday, right? So, and what's really cool is that Snaplogic provides you a really simple way to do really powerful things. And so if you're using this Workday Snap, you'll actually have the entirety of available services sort of surfaced here for you to look at, along with any of the subordinate objects that are sort of callable inside of that service. And so what that means is that instead of having to cycle through several hundred pages of very comprehensive, but also very dense technical documentation, it's sort of served up here for you to kind of make that a little bit easier. And it's very easy to kind of iterate through and see what you do and don't want, right? So we're pulling in information from the staffing service here related to workers. Tim Vandal, our new hire, is a new employee, so he falls under the worker object inside of Workday. And if we click on here, this little element that looks kind of like a green document, we'll actually get a data preview of what we're pulling in real time. And so I'll start to kind of expand this out. By default, we're looking at this inside of JSON, and I'll keep expanding. Here we go. This is what I was after. So here we can actually see 21793, which corresponds to the employee number here, and Tim Vandal. There he is. And so we can see that all of this information is coming in from Workday related to Tim, right? So a lot of this is information that we ourselves put in. Other elements are sort of devised or figured out by Workday itself, and then other items will just be blank because we don't have that information input yet. But it's really, really, really simple, right? In order to kind of mimic what we just did, in order to get the information out, you literally just have to search for Workday over inside of the snaps, pull over that read, and then do that configuration using the service and object. So really pretty simple to get started. So what's happening next? So we're pushing the information into what's called a mapper snap. And this is a place where we're transforming that pretty complicated data structure that we saw that we got back from Workday into something that we can leverage in multiple places. So this is really where a lot of the magic happens for Snaplogic. And it kind of comes down to two things. The first is looking at introspection. So we're able to see the entirety of a schema of information that we pulled in real time over here on the left. And then we're also able to see like a preview here, this target schema that's being surfaced up, looking down further in the pipeline to say like, hey, these are the fields that we're expecting to see. And so your task then just becomes, sort of matching from the left to the right. And you can do that really simply. It's really just as basic as hitting this plus sign and then just dragging over whatever element you needed. So in this case, I'm on worker ID. I'm going to drag that over. We see that 21793 is there. And that would be something that I could then match up on the right-hand side with a corresponding employee number in this case. So we've kind of pre-populated these already. All these in bold have a value that's mapping into them. But again, you're getting the real-time sort of preview to make sure that what you're actually pulling in corresponds to what you'd expect. So we're saying, hey, I want to take a look at position ID. Yep, that looks like something I would expect in that situation. And then the same thing, let's take a look real quick also at something like site name. Yeah, so Dallas, which is something that we selected. That also is going to save you a lot of time as you're doing development work because you're not consistently bouncing back and forth multiple places, running tests. If you're someone who's more on the technical side, who's done a lot of stuff with Postman or with Workday Studio, this process of sort of mapping things out, doing a transformation, seeing sample data, it really can be a very time-consuming process. Here, it's all just surfaced for you, all in the same place as everything else that you're doing, which saves a lot of time. All right, so we mentioned before that we were going to be pushing data into ServiceNow. So let's go ahead and take a look at ServiceNow real quick. And I'm going to look for Tim Vandal. Cool, here he is. We'll just kind of zoom in on him a little bit. Great. So goal was to have this new hire Tim push over as a user inside of ServiceNow. Done. We've got that record. We see the email that we put in, the name, along with the employee number that Workday generated on its own. Likewise, we wanted to do a notification inside of Slack. So pop that open and here he is, right? So this dedicated Slack channel for new hires that are coming in. This could be a way to alert your recruiting team, members of the HR team, the hiring managers, really whatever you needed it for. But just to show you, this is a push into Slack, and again, can be abstracted out to any number of other applications you might want to highlight. I'm going to make a quick note here too, in terms of capabilities for those of you that are a little bit more technically inclined. The ServiceNow Snap is actually a dedicated ServiceNow, like a specifically developed Snap for ServiceNow. Whereas the Slack notification, this is actually a general REST API call, right? So there's a combination of snaps like Workday or ServiceNow or Salesforce or Snowflake that are provided by Snaplogic that are ready to drag and drop and be leveraged by you. And in anything that's not sort of readily available yet in terms of that catalog, you can absolutely do your conventional REST API connections or SOAP connections or whatever else you needed to do. So there's really no limit to connecting to whatever you need to or whatever you want to. So the final piece here was actually pushing the data into Snowflake. So Snowflake, again, is our digital warehousing solution. You can see on this mapper as well that these fields here on the right have changed as target schema. And that's because Snaplogic has used, again, that introspection feature to surface up what we would expect to see. So this is actually giving us all of the field names inside of the data warehouse. If you're not somebody who's used to dealing with data warehousing, these are basically like column names inside of an Excel file or a CSV. And again, it's just as simple as finding the elements that we need on the left and matching them up with those on the right. And that'll actually write into a data warehousing solution. But that's a simple case, and I want to show you what it looks like. And I promise to talk a little bit about people analytics, right? We've seen a little bit of software to software integration pieces here with the ServiceNow and the Slack push. That could just as easily include your learning management system, your CRM, all those great things we talked about. But the entirety of these sort of puzzle pieces, these snaps put together, is called a pipeline. And what we're able to do is actually call a child pipeline from the primary. And you get a little bit of a preview of what that looks like here. And so what that means is we're taking the payload that we pulled here, again, something you can preview sort of real time to take a look at, and we're going to push that information into a standalone pipeline and see what happens. So that's actually inside of this pipeline technically. I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like in the data warehouse. And then I'm going to go ahead and fire this other one so we can actually walk through that a little bit. So let me actually go ahead and fire this one now in the background while we move into the one that already completed. So here we're inside of Snowflake. And what we want to do is to search for the Tim Vandal record, which I believe was 21793. It's the employee number. So I've added that here. And we'll go ahead and run this. Great. And so what we see here also is that the baseline data warehousing record for Tim Vandal has also pushed in here during that same workflow, that same element. So Snaplogic is allowing us to do software to software, and in the same place also doing data transformation and pushing into a data warehouse. So the data model here is a design provided by Elgin. This is based on sort of best practices that we've devised over the course of several years to really put you in a position to automatically track changes that are relevant to the employee lifecycle, and then see those things iterate over time, so that you're able to track incremental changes, see the date times for when a certain record was valid, and then see how an employee's metadata changes over time. And I'll show you in a moment, like, what are some of the things that you might be able to do with something like that. But in the meantime, let me hop back over to the designer. Great. So we're actually in a place now where this is run again. So this is essentially the run that happened in the background automatically when we invoked this child pipeline. And so basically what's happening here is we're reading the data in. We're doing some mapping activities. We're sort of figuring out if there's multiple employees, what needs to be resolved, grouping those things together, ultimately pushing that information to Snowflake dedicated snaps. And this is a slowly changing dimension snap, which is enormously powerful. And this is allowing us to not waste a lot of resources, and also to very easily check if something has changed with the values that we care about inside the data warehousing. So instead of having to do a whole lot of really deep assessment to say like, hey, has anything changed? Should we care about, specific metadata changing or not? This is a way to just sort of flag whether or not something has to be assessed at all. So we say, hey, is anything to be changed? Is it a brand new employee? If it is, and they don't exist in the data warehouse, make that first record, what we just saw for Tim. If something has been updated, write a new record, show that the old record is no longer the most current, and go ahead and overwrite that other one. So I'm going to show you another employee, Veronica Holla, and you'll see that there's this number here. So the lower the number, the older the record. So 793 happened before 794. So 793 is Veronica's first record. This is whenever she was a new hire. The exact same process we just saw with the Tim Vandal that we hired. And we can see that this record actually has a create date and an end date here and here, whereas this other record, the one below it, the newer one, just has a create date and no end date. And we're also seeing that the current flag for this one is true. What that means is that if we wanted to very quickly see top of stack, what does my organization look like today? We've got really, really simple filtering criteria to help us tease those things out. Or I can go back and say, what the organization look like on 2021-3-4 prior to this end date happening. We can also look and see that there's been a record change. We see a description of what some of those things might be. And then right here, we can see that the gender and ethnicity had not been pulled over in the initial employee hiring, but that was subsequently updated. And now we know that the self-selection EEO information has been provided. And so likewise, if there's a site change, if there's a manager change, a title change, position change, salary changes, bonuses, stock awards, evaluating things like stock cliffs, all of that can be captured inside of the data warehousing using Snaplogic as the method by which that data is pulled in the same place as everything else is being managed, right? So that's something else to kind of think about too, is that we're leveraging this workflow to go ahead and handle employee onboarding. Part of that is also doing this to push things into the data warehouse, but this can also be invoked whenever we want to do something like offboarding. So what's included is whenever an employee is terminating, we can call the exact same pipeline and handle those. Anytime there's a metadata change, this might be a scheduled task, or we might have the update pushed out. We can actually direct it directly to this pipeline, and we'll see those things changed. So as logic is being updated across multiple use cases, you're able to make the modifications that are necessary for each of those things in one place, as opposed to having it spread across multiple places or with several different hard-coded code blocks, which is enormously beneficial. The last thing I want to kind of highlight as well, if you're kind of looking at like, okay, cool. So I see the integration elements, I see the transformation pieces, I see the push to the data warehouse, but it's maybe not exactly clicking like, why should I care about the data warehousing piece? That may not be immediately obvious. That's because you're able to do things like this. So these are dashboards that Elgin put together. These are live on our website. You're welcome to go play with them. So they are interactive, but this is built using Snaplogic and then pulling from a data warehousing solution. So showing you the workflow that was just used. And so we're seeing things like employee populations, both hourly and salary, changing over time. We can see the distribution of our people. We can see what total labor costs have been in. We're actually pulling in information from payroll systems as well. So not using Workday Finance, but an alternative payroll system and merging that data. And so you start to really get like a holistic view of what's going on. And because Snaplogic is agnostic and extremely capable, you can use it for multiple things. Like this is for employee engagement. And we're doing things like tacking on other capabilities that are natively embedded in Snaplogic, like using natural language processing or machine learning to go ahead and take survey responses and categorize that into a sentiment analysis. Like all of this is being done inside of Snaplogic. I'm just servicing it up inside of, in this case, Tableau, to show you what those things look like. So enormous capability. That's what the data warehousing sort of component provides to you. And when you think about data warehousing as it relates to the entirety of your ecosystem, so HR, but then all your shared services elements, your business data, merging your ops information with your finance information, logistics with your bespoke apps, with your people, all of it starts to kind of come together and you get a holistic picture. So a holistic picture of what's going on, why you should care about it, and then also a centralized place to manage, monitor, control, and build. Great. Nice. So Rich, anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think you've done an excellent job representing the capabilities of the platform. Just a couple of minor notes. Those expressions that Zach was showing you in the various mappers and whatnot, those are JavaScript. So we're using the most popular language out there, and it allows you a great deal of flexibility to be able to do those transformations, because you're going to spend time taking a hierarchical structure and flattening it, and using the mapper and JavaScript expressions, not writing code, and using a drag and drop environment makes it a lot easier for you to build these kinds of maps. And what's even more important is that once you build these maps, you can copy them from one place to another and reuse them. So this logic is very easily copied from, one pipeline to another. So do it once, do it right, use it till you die. So we enable you to approach that. So there's a high degree of reuse of the things that you build, and with the dynamic, the ability for them to take runtime parameters or document parameters, and as part of the input, one pipeline can handle multiple use cases. As Zach mentioned, you can use the same pipeline to add somebody as well as offboard them with a couple of minor flags. And that kind of reuse is incredibly powerful, so excellent demo. So we want to wrap up here.
Yes.
On our time.
All right. So I think we've kind of hit, broad strokes what we've learned already. Snaplogic is awesome. your HCM environment can become more efficient, less risky, more lean, and better connected, and more, leveraged as a strategic asset. And Elgin is also helping, standing by to help guide you on that journey as you make those updates. And so, yeah, I think we can go ahead and call it there. And then, appreciate everybody hopping in here and joining us for the session. Rich, I'll kick it to you for closing comments.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thank you. Well, as you've seen, the platform is incredibly powerful. I like to say when you put an intelligent platform in the hands of smart people like Zach, wonderful things happen. Okay. And wonderful things happen quickly. So with that, we have an offer here as a follow-up to this. We're offering a free consulting for scoping your HCM project using Snaplogic. And if you're interested in pursuing that, my email is rdill@snaplogic.com. Please reach out to me. We'll establish the contacts and proceed from there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attention, your interest, and be safe and well. And with that, we will stop the recording.